In this lesson, we are going to be working with finding slope given 2 points. So we are given a formula and we have worked with slope in terms of a graph and we worked with rise over run. And so now we are building on this and given a slope with 2 points. So we don't have a graph and it may not be worthwhile to graph our points or plot our points on a coordinate plane. So we need to have another method to find the slope. So the slope formula is used to find the slope between 2 points on a graph, and the 2 points are labeled as x sub 1, y sub 1. So that's how we read, it's not just x1, y1. We read this as x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. So given 2 ordered pairs, we label them this way so that when we plug them in the formula, that we're consistent. We use the variable m for slope, and we'll see why later as we progress through this unit. So we've seen that we can find slope as the rise over run. We've also talked about how that is the same as the change in y over the change in x. And so when we put this into terms of our 2 ordered pairs, our change in y is written as y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So that difference between our y values, or that change in our y values, over our change or our difference in our x values. So that's where this formula of slope comes from. So if you need a moment to copy any of these notes down, make sure that you pause the video. Along the left-hand portion of your notes sheet, you will see that there are some steps to follow. As we're working through some examples today, you'll see that we're going to follow these steps, and it will also be helpful on your assignments as well. So the steps to follow, the first step is to label each ordered pair. And so we're going to label them with these labels so that we make sure that we are plugging the right value into the right portion of the formula so that we can get the correct slope. When we plug the values into the formula, then we're going to simplify that expression. And we also, after we evaluate that expression, we need to make sure that our slope is simplified as well. So we're going to go through these steps as we work through these examples together today. So with our first 2 points, we have the point 2,1 and the point 4,7. So like I said, we're going to label these. So this is going to be my first ordered pair, so x1, y1, and that's where these came from. This is our first ordered pair and our second ordered pair. So this would be our x sub 2 and our y sub 2. So when we plug these values into the equation, I need my y sub 2 first, so I'm going to have 7 minus our y sub 1, which is 1, divided by our x sub 2, which is 4, minus our x sub 1, which is 2. 7 minus 1 is 6, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So that means that our slope, our m, is 3, or we could also write that as 3 over 1. And on the examples that we're working out together, I went ahead and put a coordinate plane next to that. So we could also compare this to the graph and see where this slope is coming from. So if we have the point 2,1 and the point 4,7, and this tells us that our slope is 3. So we should be able to see that if we go up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 1, 2, that up 6 over 2 simplifies to 3 over 1, so that would be the same as the slope of 3. We should also be able to see that if we go up 3 and over 1, that here would be another point on that graph. So we can see that that is where our slope came from, and we can see that through another point on the graph as well. So let's look at the next one. If we have the point -6, -1, and the point 3, -4, so if we have our x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2, and we plug these values into the formula. So our m we're going to set equal to, our y sub 2 is -4, minus, and our y sub 1 is -1. So make sure that we plug those values into the formula accurately, because the minus is a part of the equation, and then we need to make sure that we bring down that -1. We're going to put that over, divide by our x sub 2, which is 3, minus our x sub 1, which is -6. -4 minus -1, that's the same as -4 plus 1, so that is -3. Divided by 3 minus -6, so that's the same as 3 plus 6, which is 9. And we need to make sure that we simplify this. And -3 divided by 9, or -3/9, could simplify to a slope of -1/3, and slope of -1/3. When we plot our points on our graph, so we plot the point -6, -1, and the point 3, -4, we should be able to see that if we go down 1 and over 3, we can have a point on our line, go down 1, a point on the line, go down 1 over 3 to finish our line. So we can kind of see our stair steps to verify that our line matches the slope that we found out as well. So let's look at another one. So if we have the point -4, 5 and the point -8, -5. So I have my x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So in the formula, our slope is equal to our y sub 2, which is -5, minus our y sub 1, which is 5, divided by our x sub 2, which is -8, minus our x sub 1, which is -4. So -5 minus 5 is -10. -8 minus -4, so that's the same as -8 plus 4 is -4. And remember here that this is the same as division. So if we have a negative divided by a negative, that's going to give us a positive value. And we also can simplify 10 over 4. 2 goes into both of those, so that would give us a positive 5/2. So when we plot our points, we should be able to see how these two negatives become a positive slope. So -4, 5, and -8, -5 here. And so we should be able to see if we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 2, and plot our point there, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 2, that we end up on our original point. And so we can also see from this that our slope is positive. So making sure that if we have a negative divided by a negative, that gives us a positive slope, that our line is going up from left to right. Okay, 2 more together. So determine the slope of this line. So if we have the point 5, 4, So we have our x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And we plug those into our formula for slope. So our y sub 2 is 4, minus our y sub 1, which is 4, divided by our x sub 2, which is negative 3, minus our x sub 1, which is 5. So our 4 minus 4 numerator, 4 minus 4 is 0, divided by negative 3 minus 5 gives us negative 8. And so negative or 0 divided by negative 8, so this would give us a slope of 0. And when we see this, when we graph our line, we should be able to see a horizontal line. So we have the point 54 and the point negative 34. And when we connect these points, we should see that it has a slope of 0, or a horizontal line. So making sure that when you get 0 in the numerator, that you would end up with a horizontal line. So let's look at the last one that we're going to do together. So if we have negative 2, that would be our x sub 1 and our y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Plug these into the formula. So our y sub 2 is negative 7, minus our y sub 1 is 6, divided by x sub 2 of negative 2, minus our x sub 1 of negative 2. So negative 7 minus 6 is negative 13, over negative 2 minus negative 2 is the same as negative 2 plus 2, which gives us a value of 0. If you were to put this in your calculator, it would give you some sort of error message because you cannot divide by 0. So let's see what this means in terms of our line. So if we graph or plot our points, negative 2, 6 here, and the point negative 2, negative 7, and we connect those points, we should now be able to, once I move my line to connect my points, we should be able to see what kind of line this is or what kind of slope we have. And we have a vertical line, so that means that our slope is undefined. And so if you end up with a denominator of 0, you cannot divide by 0, so that means that your slope is undefined. So make sure that you pay attention to the difference between 0 in the numerator, which is a slope of 0, and a 0 in the denominator, which means you have a slope that is undefined. So what I want you to do now is to pause the video and work out the remaining problems of slope. And then I will reveal the answers when you are finished with those. So pause the video, work those 6 remaining problems out, and then push play when you are finished with those, and I will tell you what those answers are. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you the answers to these. So if you have questions on what your answer is or the answer that I got, then make sure that you ask questions on how I got the slope that I did. So on this one, you should have gotten a slope of negative 2. You can also write this as negative 2 over 1. Either would work. On the next one, slope is 4 over 5. M in this case is simplified negative 3 halves. M equals 0 here. m equals 7/2. And on the last one, m is undefined. So hopefully you got those correct, and if you did not, or if you made some errors, then go back and see if you can find your mistakes so you can get your answers to match these here. And when you are finished with that, you are ready for your assignment.